today's show, we call this the breakup. It's really the psychological engines. We treat economics like a psychology engine. It's not math. We're not adding things up. We're not dividing. We're not coming up with an answer that's a number that you're going with, and you win the debate if it's Austrian school versus modern monetary theory or Keynesian stuff. It's none of that stuff. It's the psychology that goes into the decisions we make every single day and what's behind those decisions. And the simulation, I'm a big simulation theory guy, so you're going to hear the simulation a lot on this show. We take that frame of the breakup because, we've got this new world ahead of us and before us because of what we're learning. And there's parts we got to let go. And today I saw a really neat case, which was the simulation delivered us this great two Canadians related to Joe Rogan, right? You've got Jordan Peterson, who's sort of new in the Bitcoin community, but making a lot of waves and bringing all that horsepower to what's going on around Bitcoin. So, of course, it's a fresh voice and a fresh idea. And we're all looking forward to the hyped up appearance yesterday on Joe Rogan because we think we're going to get one of the largest audiences Bitcoin has ever had. Yet on the same day, singer Neil Young, another Canadian, decided that he would give an ultimatum to Spotify. So yesterday, Neil Young said to Spotify that hosts the Joe Rogan podcast, it's either Neil or Joe. You can't have both. And I looked at the situation. That's fair enough. Of course, Neil Young can make decisions. But I thought about it for a second. I said, well, it doesn't really affect me, right? And I remembered that song, Sweet Home Alabama. And I said, well, I heard Mr. Young sing about us. I heard O'Neill put us down. But I hope Neil Young will remember that I can listen to him off Spotify anyhow. I don't need Spotify. I can go on YouTube. I can go anywhere to listen to this guy. So it makes no difference to me. The only person who loses here is Spotify, right? They're the only one that can actually lose. Doesn't make a difference to Neil Young. Joe Rogan doesn't care. I mean, he's going to win this. Of course, he's the most popular podcaster on earth. Neil Young, with his couple of tunes he wrote back in the 60s and 70s, as good as they were, right? I'm not going to stop listening to him. I thought those songs were great. I don't care if he disagrees with me on anything. Like, the songs were really fun. So I'm a fan of Neil Young. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to stop being a fan. However, I took it kind of personally that he would insult someone that I think is a pretty good reference. He's as wrong as anyone else, Joe Rogan, right? He's trying it out. Good ideas, one of the best interviewers in the game, of course, but we've all got to use our own discretion. And he's not right about everything, but certainly he's doesn't need to be strong-armed by a guy like Neil Young. But when I thought of that situation, and today's lesson is all about negotiation power, because that's what it made me think of. I looked at who the loser is here, and it has to be Spotify, right? That's what I'm pretty sure it's Spotify. And then I said to myself, well, let's look at the state when it comes to negotiating power with people, and let's interject Bitcoin into the conversation as well and find out where the state's negotiating power is with us today and how we can maybe turn that a little bit. So I took these negotiating power sources, they're called, from a lot of negotiation guidelines for negotiating your salary. And there's a lot of these matrices out there. There's a few others that I left out that you'll see in a lot of this literature, how to negotiate. You'll often see like nepotism or certain degrees and things like that. I kind of kept that out of this matrix just to simplify because it just is not that relevant. It's pretty obvious. It doesn't make a difference. So I tried to bring a few of these sources of negotiating power from these matrices and bring them forward and see what's going on. So when we look at negotiating power of the state, so my contrast here is with the state, the modern nation state with tax collecting and services being given, roads and hospitals and all the things they do. Healthcare in this case, right? In a lot of countries, it's healthcare. In the United States, not as much, but it's still a huge matter of public policy, of course, right? We can say we don't have state-supported healthcare or universal healthcare or whatever that is in the United States, but there's certainly a policy role. We can't deny that. So I looked at these sources of negotiating power, and the two parties in this combination are the state and people. And the two sort of psychological engine pieces are, of course, before Bitcoin and after Bitcoin. So in the case of information, what leverage did the state have on people before Bitcoin? Well, with the Bank Secrecy Act, of course, they could find out how much you made, how much money you were sending to people. There's all these aspects of deputizing the banking system in order to do a lot of law enforcement jobs. We've seen that as a fair compromise for a little while. It sort of came from the Al Capone time, and we realized that you could deputize financial services and that infrastructure and get results. I think everyone was behind it at the Al Capone time and the Untouchables and Elliot Ness and all that stuff. But of course, it went to an extreme when the Bank Secrecy Act came out. Of course, Bitcoin removes that negotiating lever, right? That's always been a big piece of what's going on here, is that the Bank Secrecy Act and the ability to monitor transactions and tie them to names and put them on the SWIFT network, and Operation Choke Point, right, which was a financial strangulation of political opponents in the previous, well, 2 administrations ago in the United States, a really big issue, actually. And so we've seen now that this source of power, information, is not really a credible one anymore with government. So we can almost say that after Bitcoin and going forward, it's probably lost. It's at least lost in the eyes of a lot of people who see the world in this Bitcoin lens, that have this economic engine that is motivated by Bitcoin. Expertise, right? When you have expertise in something, you can certainly negotiate a higher salary or more payment. When it's the state, they were responsible for a lot of institutions that would provide that expertise, right? And certainly as Bitcoiners, we've been paying attention to central bankers and the fluff and the choice of language, and really the lack of expertise. I guess complexity theater has been one of the common complaints. Now, when you look at what's going on with COVID, the reputation of experts appointed from a government is at an all-time low. Fauci was a good cop, bad cop type of thing. He had to be the bad cop. I understand why a lot of people had a problem with him. And, he had a lot of bad news, but things have gone pretty far. I doubt anyone has an appetite collectively to see him in another leadership position in government. And I'd say there are a lot of people who fall into that category after COVID, that you just don't want to go to those resources and institutions for the expertise that comes with it because of that loss of negotiating power. So I'd say Bitcoin opened a lot of people's eyes, but that has been driven even wider now. It's far beyond Bitcoin. There's an all-time low amount of credibility of the experts. And we're sitting around with COVID, for example, doing our own research. It's not a good look. We're not good at it. Right? I don't like doing my own research. I don't want to research vaccines. What the hell do I know about any of this stuff? How could I possibly research a vaccine? I have no clue. I'm pretty smart. I'm not an idiot. I can't research vaccines and understand my risk versus COVID. They're all dangerous. I'm sure everyone's making decisions out of fear. It's not a good look. It's not good for us. We had to do it. We did pretty good, actually, using Twitter and all the resources. I'd say we have a better sense of our risk, but it's not like I can just go to an expert and say, well, I'm this old and I weigh this much and I'm this healthy and I eat these things, and what's my risk of vaccines and what's my risk of COVID? Nobody knows the answer to that. Nobody. There's nobody charting it. There's nobody looking at it. No one knows. We can do our best, but we're not good at it, right? We're not good at it. We end up going to Joe Rogan and all these people, right? That's not a good situation. I don't want to be relying on Joe Rogan for my healthcare, but I kind of am, that's not good. So expertise, right, as a negotiating lever for the state after Bitcoin, non-existent. And COVID. Coercion. So in Quebec right now, this is a great story in the news. If you go to Walmart, right, they've extended the vaccine passport to such an extent that if you go to Walmart, they've created like a cubicle for you, because you're still allowed. They can't stop you from going to the pharmacy and the grocery store, but they can stop you from going to the toy store in Walmart. So they built like a glass cage, and someone will walk around with you if you're unvaccinated, and only allow you to go to the pharmacy and the grocery store section. They won't let you go anywhere else. It's just like a coercion thing. Now, we've seen they've also got this plan. They're going to go door to door and try and convince people to get vaccines as well, so they get everyone vaccinated. While this is all going on, of course, you've got another story in Canada, which is this trucking convoy, and the truckers are driving across the country, clogging the highway, saying, we're not doing this vaccine thing across the United States-Canada border. We've got supply chain troubles. This is very, very dangerous. This is not going to work. And there's a huge protest. So one could imagine that there's the coercion power is almost at an end. It sort of makes sense in a pandemic that the government is going to take a bit of power and try to be coercive, because they're trying to eliminate as many risks for as many people as possible. But at a certain point, the patience will run out. And I'm still of the belief that the power, certainly with the people, will only go so far as to follow them, so far in following them, and at a certain point will stop. And the trucker convoy, I think, is a great example. So coercion, while still there, you can see it dissipating. And if they don't have the information, if everyone is holding their own, and this information one is where holding your own keys, I want to mention, is really important. It doesn't really get stripped away unless you're doing that, right? That's why you'll hear a lot of Bitcoiners putting such a importance on this. It's not just posturing. Literally don't get this major advantage. You don't take the negotiating power unless you unless you perform that extra step. I think I could be wrong a little bit, but it's a really important one. And it especially takes away the coercion, because then they can't take away your money. They can't, really punish you as much. Rewards are still there. They get to keep rewards after Bitcoin. That's still a big part of what they do, and probably they should probably always be able to reward people for good behavior in their eyes, or at least the behavior they want to incentivize. So we'll come back to that in a second. The next one here, legitimate, I think is really important, really important. So in the United States, so one thing that Bitcoin definitely taught us is the idea of database integrity or security, and the security of the state of a database. But that's the whole point, right? There isn't one point of failure with Bitcoin. You could verify the ledger, you understand who has what money as far as the addresses go. You can understand all that stuff. Really important, right? And that's why we're so obsessed with hash power, because that's literally how many versions of this, or node count and hash power, how many versions of this is out there, how much redundancy is built in that helps support that network. Now, when I look at the US elections, right now, I have no proof, and I'm not claiming the 2020 election at all was cheating, unfair, or whatever. All I know is that I can't verify the election. I can't go and say for sure this amount of people voted for this candidate, this person had their vote counted for this candidate. There is no way to audit the database at all, right? And if anyone knows anything about computers, databases, computer science, network architecture, they know that if you can't audit a system, it's not happening. It's not real, right? It's not happening. So while people might say that it was the fairest election ever or anything like that, right? That could all be true. It doesn't mean it's good, right? We can't verify it. We can't know. So going forward, we'll have to see auditable elections from the software level, right? Are we going to see that? I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to have a similar opaque system as we had in 2020 and 2016 and 2012 and 2008, 2004, going on and on, right? I think we're going to get the same old, we're going to get it right this time system, right? And how much longer will people who understand network architecture and computer science, because of Bitcoin, really think that elections that are not auditable at the software level are legitimate? I don't think it's possible, right? We can say there's no deliberate cheating. We can say it's not a plot to steal an election, right? We can say that and be right, but still not have confidence in the elections, right? You don't have to catch someone planning to cheat to not trust the results. You don't trust the results just because of the way it's built, right? And you might not have had that feeling or understanding until you really understood what Bitcoin was, how it worked, and then you can apply that frame to almost any computer system that requires auditability for legitimacy, right? If we can't audit an election, I mean, think about the power that goes into that role and wonder if you can't audit it. I don't have to prove anything about it. If you know the opportunity to cheat at something is there and you can't get caught, guess what's going to happen? 100% of the time. It's human nature. So I don't need to prove it or even see it. I know that if a system isn't auditable, it's not secure, and that I can't detect how it's changed or who's manipulated it or who's done anything wrong to it. So that's really important when it comes to the legitimacy of state actors. So what ends up happening here with this negotiating power is that, just like Spotify, all of a sudden we look in this situation and they're the only loser. See you later, Neil Young. We're going to see Joe Rogan on the podcast. That's going to be great. And the only real loser is Spotify. When I look at the shift in power because of Bitcoin, because of COVID, the negotiating power of the state is at an all-time low. Already, today, at an all-time low. I don't think it's going to get any better. In the end, they're left with this one thing, reward. And now when you see this concept of Bitcoin nomadism and the desire for certain states to attract Bitcoiners, you're starting to see that game theory play out. That I think Fidelity, one of the largest investment firms in the world, the other day say that if a country acquires Bitcoin, for example, it's a huge game theoretical advantage for that country when it comes to macroeconomic change and all these kinds of things. You're going to see more and more the desire to attract these Bitcoiners to jurisdictions for all kinds of reasons. And that really puts the state in a totally different position. They've got to start treating their citizens as customers. They have to start accounting for the services they provide and what they're actually paying for, because they can't just capture these people because they were born there and then throw a bunch of expertise. This is what you're getting, all these doctors and da, 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 and then, you know, coercively force them to do things they might want to do. The trade-offs are becoming a little too much. And my prediction is, when we look at that psychological engine, right, the ability of the state, with the loss of this negotiating power to perpetuate itself in its current form, is basically gone, right? Basically gone. And all they can really do is be nice and hope we come and move there. We're not quite there yet, right? We're not quite there yet. But how far is this really, right? How far are we there? I think what happened with Neil Young shows us that the psychology of these actors to sort of manifest the futures they want is at an all-time low. And Bitcoin has allowed us to gain this freedom. So if I'm to impart a lesson about breaking up today, it's that, you know, look for the best deal from a country. Don't look, you know, it's the opposite of what that old JFK saying is, right? Look what they can do for you, right? Who cares? I'm going to do more for them. We've done enough, right? So that's the episode for today, everyone.
Great. Love it. Nolan, thank you very much. Are you back with us tomorrow? Do we have an episode tomorrow?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to pre-record one tomorrow. Pardon me. There's some nomadism going on tomorrow. So
okay.
So I will send you a file early in the morning. So pardon audience, there won't be a live show tomorrow. We like to do it live. We love your comments. So please, you know, share feedback. We love it. More feedback, the better. The more we can sort of tweak the show to help you guys. Right. This is like a relationship show, right? So this is to help folks get over maybe some hangups they have about, you know, breaking up with their country. You know, everyone did the Pledge of Allegiance and stuff. Some of this stuff's pretty hard, right? So we're looking for the right, you know, soft landing from the breakup.